Okay, in this one, I'm not really sure what we're going to show on the screen. This is more discussion of server stability and guidelines, and that's something we've really looked at hard in the last few months. And uh, a lot of it comes down to little things. I want you guys to have our experience and perspective. I do want to make it very clear that this is my opinions. It does not mean that it's the rule of law for anyone. These are things that I've talked with Crypt a lot about, and we do seem to have a consensus on them. But it's not in any way meant to tell you what anyone needs to do or what they think. It's just these are things we know. One big one is at create. There are three ways of creating something in the world. There is at create, which actually, for those of you that don't know, um, for when you're looking at your database, when you do at create, it puts that data into shard. At create does not put it on a land block. It does not put it into world. It puts it into shard. In that way, when you at create, many of you have had an issue where you at create something and it doesn't appear. Well, sometimes you just put it too close to a building and it doesn't appear. That code still goes into shard. So you've created something that your server is going to be looking for that's going to be in your server, but it's still not appearing in world and it's stuck in your shard. That is something that we're really looking at trying to eliminate. It's a dangerous thing. It can be done accidentally, and add create can be a dangerous power for that reason. The other two ways of inserting into land block are at create land block, or at create insta. At create inst creates a land block instance, and what that's going to do, for those of you that aren't familiar, in your ACE server file, there's an ACE master, and you go into your source. This is default server bin 64 debug netcore app, and it makes you a content folder. Now, normally when you're doing a lot on a server, you're going to have JSON, SQL, and weenies inside it. And occasionally, if you're doing at create insta, it's going to create a land block file, a land block folder, and in that folder is going to be your land block files. I'll show you that my land block files are all moved into my master. These are my land block files. Well, they create a file that looks like this. And this is a custom one. Normally, it just says delete from land block instance where land block equals 7, or the hex equivalent, and it doesn't say and where weenie class ID. I did this one to be very clean. Normally they just have this section and then they put in all the instances. Now this is how ACE builds your land blocks. This is how all retail stuff is built. It's built by land block just like this. You can go onto the ACE website and you can literally download the default land blocks for AC. And you can find Cragstone and it'll show you all the installs in Cragstone. When you do an at create instance, it recreates all the existing installs and then it adds yours at one value above these values. These values start at 0 and they go to FFE. If you're not familiar with how to count in hex, that's a whole nother discussion. I literally had to learn that because I had never done it before. You'll notice these are custom installs, so they start at 500. I keep a range starting at 500 because it keeps me from colliding with anything retail that is coming in. Everything I do is 500 and above, unless I'm building on a land block that has no stock content on it, which is the vast majority of my island. When we do an at create instant, so it's going to work that way. There's a trick to that, however. If you have two development servers that are developing and they use the at create instant command, they will layer and they will do the exact same weenie IDs unless you've signified ranges for your people. So if you have two people that are going to be putting a new instant on the land block on their own private servers and they're building you code to go to your main server, you're going to want to make sure you assign them ranges. If you don't, you could fear with collisions. On Drunkenfell, we now run a master. This master has every land block. So you'll see in ours that sometimes we have a 7D64. And then we have, well, actually, this isn't a good example because I didn't choose the right one. There are a few, if I look at them, and I'd have to find them. There are a few, and there's not a whole ton of them. Here's one here. There's a B86F sequel. That is my land block file. Okay, this deletes from land block instance, and then it installs starting at 500, 501, 502, 503. Then we have an event, Raleigh. He does custom live events. They're not permanent, so we want to be able to delete them later. So we did the same number with an R at the end, and when these load up, he starts at a different land block number. So his stuff will never collide with anything I have. And his file can be deleted without changing the master file. These master files should only be changed very, very rarely, to be honest. It's when we create it and we put in new content, we should change them, but they shouldn't be changed constantly. We don't want to be risking an error. Easy to put an extra line. I'm sitting here working on it and I'm on another screen and I press A and I screw up and I save it that way. And then, holy shit, now I got an error in my file. At create instant works well, excepting that if you go onto a server on Cragstone, in Cragstone, if you try and create a land block instant with the @create insta command, it will tell you the land block is full. That land block is not full. However, the highest number that's available in that land block is used. @create instant only goes from the highest number up. Therefore, you have to custom assign one, and you can do @create insta and assign a land block instance. I work all of it in the backside code. I pull up the default land block and then I assign mine manually to fit within the ranges I need because I view that as a safer option. The third way of instituting into a land block instance is to insert with no GUID. That was a sore point with some of the ACE devs, and I'll discuss that now. If you insert without a GUID assigned and you let it auto assign a GUID, it will give you a GUID for the appropriate land block, starting at the top, going down. It will skip over anything that's taken, and it will start at the top and go down. However, having code on your server that is not assigning a GUID is essentially not what is in the spirit of what ACE is trying to do, and it is something we have completely dropped on Drunkenfell. We no longer do that practice because it was more important to us to follow the system that ACE has set up. I will also tell you this, installing it with these land block files, I don't know how big most of you are running with your patches on custom content. Ours is not small, it's 6 megabytes. It is over 150,000 lines. It installs in less than 3 minutes. This is a much faster way to install stuff to the database. It's a much cleaner way when you look at big land blocks, and you can go, F1DA is one of my biggest ones. It deletes the entire land block. It installs absolutely everything. This one starts at 0 because it's an unused land block in retail. It goes all the way up. And yeah, I custom wrote these numbers in. I did them all by hand, and that was something that needed to be done to do this properly. Now in the future, I have ways of doing it where I can install my patch clean, walk into a working world, and @create on that land block, and it'll actually create this exact file and add anything I'm adding to this file, and then I just replace it in my master and I'm good to go. There's a huge trick to some of this stuff, and it's important that we understand these issues. When I combine my files, like I have my master, what I will do is, and I have a bat file that auto combines sequels for me. I'm glad to share that. Other people built it for me. I did not. When it comes down to that, I take all my weenies, all my treasure, all my recipe, and all my quests. I put them into one folder. And I actually, let me show you that folder. There's nothing special about it. It's literally my documents. I have a SQL combined folder. I put all this stuff into that folder. And you know what? I'll actually show you the whole thing. Put all that stuff into that folder. Look, it's got all my stuff in it. And I'll run my test1.bat right here on my desktop. In the output, it's going to create a test SQL. Rename it, move it, but that has every single WCID. It starts at 14 like that cow, and it goes all the way down to all of my content. Every single thing we have on Drunkenfell is just been rolled up into one singular patch file. The only thing missing from this patch file is the land block inserts. So the next step would be move this file out, rename it into weenies, and then I take my SQL combine, I delete all of these, and I just Control A, actually unselect that one, delete those out, because I have them in my master, so I don't need them here. And then I'll move all my land block files here. Now, if I take my land block files and I go Control A, Control Copy, paste my land block files right in here. Now I can run this test bat again, and it's going to create a new test. And this one has all of my land block inserts. I'll copy this out and I'll paste it right at the bottom of my weenies, because you always want your land block inserts last. I'm not sure why, but I can tell you 100% that if you don't, you will throw errors. So you need your land block inserts last. That's the only order that really matters on it. So your weenies and your land blocks, when you're done, and this is what I have when it comes to my content, my master, all of that combines into this SQL file. Boom, this is my entire SQL. This does every bit of custom that we run on Drunkenfell, including the live event backings. This is all and done. Having a system like this is tricky to set up, and it's kind of a fucking headache. I'm not gonna lie, I've rebuilt our patch files probably 4 or 5 times into different scenarios. This has been the most successful. The trick is that it doesn't differentiate between content. You need a spreadsheet that has all your weenie IDs and tells you what each one is. And we're working on getting a master one together. We have 2 separate ones, 3 separate ones technically. We are combining them. But once that master is done, all you got to do is look it up. But it's not separated by content. We used to build our files where it was, hey, this is Dread's Yar patch, this is Dread's New Relia patch, this is Snowy Valley. We no longer do that. We run it all. We've got a custom content patch that has Raleigh's content, my Yar patch, the subway install, Crypt stuff, stuff Jaria needs for her live team, my new Relia. It's all in one patch now. It makes it a little harder if you're trying to adjust something on the fly. Our idea is to severely limit the amount that's being done on the fly. The amount of things that you can, for stability reasons, the amount of things that can be screwed up on a live server is much higher than what can be screwed up if we're following a proper policies and procedures. And that's been a big core thing of ours. And to that note, we've tried to limit very seriously at create instance. Those are things we never use on the live server, excepting for live events, because they need that dynamic for a live event. But other than that, we do our at creates, we build our stuff on our private servers, then it goes to test, then it goes to live. It needs that process, and there's still going to be issues. My whole new Relia hit live, and most of it was little typos. Some of it was updates in Ace code that updated our monsters in weird ways, and we had to adjust our difficulty levels. There's always going to be some adjustment. Live is a living, breathing monster, and it does have tweaks that not everyone has. So it is tricky. My highest recommendation to people that are working custom is that you do come up with a master file system. You stick to it, you keep the organization, and follow this kind of guideline. I don't think mine's perfect by any means, but I built mine on talks with people from Ace, and it was designed to keep a clean, represented thing that's similar to Ace. so that it makes sense for people, and so that it's safe for us in the long term. Um, Once we're done talking about at create and the dangers there, the one being inserting things into shard. You insert things into shard, you can have issues. Some of our lag issues, we have pretty much agreed. We may not know exactly what the item was, but there was something stuck in shard that was broken, which was causing us a lot of problems. We want to avoid that ever happening again. Part of that was limiting at create, being very, very strict about the code of conduct around using at create. If you have an admin character, well, why do you need to do these certain things? If it's not necessary for the server operation, hey, it needs to end. And that's something we still struggle with. Everyone will struggle with that kind of stuff. Set property. Set property is an interesting one. That's one I really love to cover with people. At set property in game can do things that I cannot do in code. That is a issue for me. I'm not a fan of set property. It has its uses on a live server. There are times where you need to use it, yes. But you can force multiple properties onto a weapon, or you can force certain attributes onto weapons using set property, that if I made that exact same type of weapon with those exact properties in SQL code, the ACE code would turn it down. It would not run through MySQL. It will not load onto the server. You can't even import that file. You can make broken items that essentially break the game code by forcing commands through the admin console as an admin on live server. That is very important, in my opinion, for people to understand, because it's a slippery slope. And if it's if exceptions are made, if, oh, well, this time it works, so it's okay, we don't really know the long term effects of some of that. And I advise caution on that. Obviously, not here to tell you what to do on your own servers or on your own content. I'm not a server owner, so all I have is opinions and some perspective. Take it for what it's worth. Beyond that, I can say that I've seen a lot of great content on a lot of different servers. I've seen things on other servers I love. Just had a whole talk with Potato about how they had a bot that did something I'm trying to get a bot to do, and it's causing me issues. So there's obviously people that know how to do things I don't know how to do, and there's a lot of that. I do think it's important for custom content, as we're getting together trying to build a team here to do this, that we are working together, communicating, and part of that to me is to show you what we've done wrong and show you how we've adapted and how we've built to be better. And that's why I wanted to share with you this video and kind of my opinions on things like at create, at set property specifically. I trust every single admin on Drunken Fell to hell and back. My team is, I love my team. I think they all bring something valuable. However, I'm the biggest proponent of, hey, we need to watch how we're using certain powers. Not because I don't trust my team, but because I know how slippery that slope can be. And that is something I encourage people to consider as they're moving forward, is once you open some of these cans of worms, it's going to be hard to put them back away. And there's lines to be walked there. As far as for any content you guys have, if you do have questions, especially about land block inserts, I'm very, very comfortable with land block inserts and a lot of that stuff. I'm more than happy to work with you. I would love to see servers running stuff that was following the ACE build up, that was following this land block uh, format that is from ACE. To me, having these formats, this is one of the keys to success. And I think it makes our content more easily shareable, but it also makes our content more stable. It also follows the ACE guidelines on how they are building content, as close as I can get, to be honest. It's following, doing things the same way they do it, so that if we ever have an issue with our custom content or anyone ever has a lag issue like we did on Drunkenfell, we can show them code like this and they go, oh yeah, I know what that is. That looks exactly what we do. And they can check it and they can verify it. And we all know that Ace is not always the biggest backer of custom content. That's not their goal. It's not what they're trying to be. They are retail, and I respect that to high hell. However, if we're going to do custom content and we're going to be playing in these channels, I think it is important that we follow some of Ace's examples and that we build in a way that they can understand and they can immediately relate to, and they can chime in and give us opinions because they are valuable and they really know their shit. It is kind of our responsibility to build in a way that we enable them to help us. Because if we're building completely cowboy, which I've been guilty of in the past plenty, if we are building completely that way, then we lose the ability of relating to them and getting their help when we need it. If we're building properly under a guideline that makes more sense to them, they will be more willing to help us, and I think it'll help us long term. That's really most of the stability stuff I had to talk about. It's those are my biggest things. It's at create, it's set properties, it's how land block inserts are going. These are all things that if not done properly, they leave residue in shard, in world. They create dupes. We still have to monitor all of this. We're running so much code and we have had so few people on it until recently that yeah, we've made mistakes. We are trying to get better. I would implore you guys to learn with us, work with us, learn from our lessons, and hopefully we can all get better as a team. Um, Thanks, guys.